Hey there, my fellow designers and creatives. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the second video in this two-part series of creating this play prototype. In this video, we're going to go ahead and finish up the animation. And let me quickly show you what this is if you haven't seen the first part. Basically, we're going to be recreating this animation, or interaction in this case is the right word, where I can drag around, and when I release my cursor or my finger in this case, it registers the value and I can check if the answer is right or wrong. If it's not, I can try that again, where I can try the correct answer and I can click on the button to check it if it's right or wrong, right? So we're going to be setting up this animation. We're going to set up the button states, how it changes between the error state and the default state and the disabled state. And we're going to add conditions to check what the condition is. And in the last part of the video, we're going to set up a second condition, which allows the user to select a range instead of actually selecting the exact value. So to quickly show you what I mean, this is how the interaction would look. So as I drag, the number doesn't get updated, but I have to choose the closest it can. So I have a range between 55 and 65 that I have set based on the correct value over here. And somewhere over here, or let's say we try a wrong answer, then it's obviously wrong because this is close to the 90 range. So we want to choose somewhere at 60 over here somewhere. And then hopefully this should be correct. And so I don't really know what this number is, but it's in the range of 55 and 65, right? So we're going to set this condition up as well. All right, and now here are the two QR codes that you can actually scan to view this prototype and interact with it all on your own. Make sure you have an iPhone to do this. The left one is going to be showing the one where you need to get the exact answer, and the right one is where you need to drag to get as close as you can. So without any further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to go here to the design tab, go here to the handle. I'm going to go to the main editor, and now I have the default view. I can create a new state called as the highlighted state here. And now I just need to edit a couple of things over here. Now, for some reason, this already seems to be working the way I want. That's because I had created it before and I deleted it. So it is just preserving that. So instead, what I can actually do is to make things simple. I'm going to go ahead and come over here, select the highlighted and right click and just to delete state. Or we can create a custom state. So that's no problem with that. So here I can say, call it the pressed state. And all I want to do here is I want to change the press state, take the top shape and bring that down by 4 pixels so that it's sitting exactly there, right? And that's about it, right? And we can now add an interaction over here. I can click on the handle. I can say touch, and touch is basically pressed down. So when I press down, I want to set the state. So I can choose set state, change the state of that particular element to be the press state. Now I don't want it to animate. I want it to do exactly how Duolingo does it. So there's no animation of the pressing. It just happens instantly. All right. And I also want to add haptic feedback when I press and a release. So I want 2 haptic feedbacks. So I'm going to say set haptic. And here you have a bunch of options. I usually go with impact and choose medium because it gives a little bit of effect. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. All right. I'm going to copy and paste this. Oop, copy and paste. No. Duplicate. Okay, duplicate works. This is going to be touch up. When I release my finger, change it back to the default state, and then, haptic feedback again, right? Amazing. Now let's do the same thing for the button as well. So go over here, press 3, click here. All right. And now here, this is fine. I'm going to go and add a custom state. This is going to be our pressed state for the button. Okay. And here again, this will be very simple. I'm going to take the top surface, move that down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then take this also and move that down 1, 2, 3, 4. And here we have this weird issue. So I'm just going to select this, the bottom surface. All right. And I'm going to actually pin it down. Okay. And I'm going to reduce this by 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then that should fix this issue over here. Right. So anyway, this is basic stuff, nothing too complicated over here. So now we go back to the main screen, and now let's go ahead and mirror this up once again. So now, as you can see, if I click and release, you can see that it's working, and the same thing happens for the button as well. We didn't add the interactions to the button. So let's quickly go ahead and do that. So I can click on the button default. I'm going to say touch down. I'm going to say set state of the button to be the press state. All right. And I'm going to duplicate this. And when I say touch up, change it back to the default state. You can add haptic here as well. I like haptic feedback quite a bit. So I'm going to quickly set that. These are not super important stuff. Copy that and paste that over here. Let's go back to the main screen. All right, now let's see if this is working. So now the button press is working nicely, and even the button press here is also working very nicely. Okay, so we've got a lot of things set up. Everything looks great, and I can move this, or probably we can just even remove this. All right. Now what we need to do is we need to set up the logic to ensure that when I tap on check, if the value is correct, it works. Now, obviously we need a condition here to check if something is correct, or if something is incorrect, what to do. Now here we know what to do here. If it is correct, we basically bring out this bottom sheet. If it's incorrect, we bring out this bottom sheet, right? So let's set this up. Now to do this, I'm going to make a copy of this, all right? And I'm going to cut that, click on the main screen, and I'm just going to paste that over here, all right? And we want this to be anchored to the bottom of the screen. And as you can see here, if I set to the bottom of the screen, the X offset and Y offset is 0. What I want to do is I just want to increase this Y offset, all right? So we move this down a little bit, all right? So probably around 190 pixels, right? So now it's almost invisible, or it's actually fully invisible, all right? Now let's go ahead and set up the interaction. Now here everything is great, all right? Now we just need to click on this button element, right? And we need to add the condition over here. Now we already added these properties over here. So this is coming from the button. I'm just going to hide that. Here we want to do multiple things, all right? So I'm gonna go ahead and set a tap trigger, all right? Or basically we can do a touch actually, not a tap. So we do a touch up, right? So when I release my finger, what should happen? So when I release my finger, I want it to actually do the action, right? We don't want it to do the action when I press down. When I release my finger, which is touch up, we want it to do the action. So what should happen when I touch up? All right, the first thing we want to do is we want to check the condition. All right, is the value right or wrong? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and type in condition. Now, in this example, we want to make sure that we show the correct answer only if the value is exactly the same as our answer over here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new variable. Now, we don't really have to do this, all right? We can do it without the variable, but I like to do things with variables to keep things very neatly and organized, all right? So here I can go ahead and add a number variable, and I can call this correct answer, okay? Now this correct answer, we will define it over here as 60, all right? And if engineers are building this is how they would set up, right? They would have a variable called as correct answer, and the correct answer is always predefined, and then the condition is just using the variable. It's not using the raw value, it is using the variable, right? So now, if the user answer, all right, that's what is going to be shown up over here. If the user answer is equal to, all right, and in code you have to add 2 equal to signs over here. If the user answer is equal to the correct answer, then what should happen? The first thing here is that we want to set position, all right, or actually set property, okay, of this bottom sheet correct, all right, and we want to choose the X offset. Because we had changed the X offset, we want to set it to a value of exactly 0, or actually not X offset, we want to choose the Y offset. We want to set that to be exactly 0, and we can add a bit of an animation over here as well, right? So let's say I'm going to say 0.25, and we can add a bit of spring animation with spring intensity of 0.2. That's fine. So let's check this out. So if I drag this all the way to 60, all right, and now I press check, nothing is actually happening. And the reason is because the value, which is basically the user answer, is not exactly 60. It's actually in decimals. So if we go back and look at the logic that we set up over here for the handlebar, all right, the user answer is the new position, all right, and we're not rounding off this number anywhere. We are rounding off the number here when we are presenting the text, but we're not actually rounding off this user answer over here. When we are setting the text, we are rounding it off and setting it, but nowhere are we actually rounding off this user answer, right? So in this case, what we can do is we could either round off the user answer here to be a whole number, or we can round it off over here in the button. Either way, it works. I will do it in the button because it's a little easier. So here I'm going to say if the user answer, which is the rounded value, so I'm going to say user answer is equal to our correct answer, which is basically 60, then this should work. So let's check it out. Okay. So now let's drag this and now we set it to 60. And now when you click check, now this works, right? Perfect. Now there's obviously a small issue over here. This needs to be on top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select the button stack. And I'm just going to give a very high Z depth of, let's say, something like 50 pixels, right? Because the bottom sheet has a Z depth of 10. We can give the, actually, let me hide all of this. Yeah, we can give the button stack a Z depth of 50. So now we can quickly check this again. So I'm going to drag this to 60 and now this happens. Now here at this point, we want to do a couple of things. One is we want to prevent this from happening. And also we want to change the text here to say next question, right? So to prevent this from happening, we want to turn off the ability to interact. So how do we do this? It's very simple. So I'm going to go back again here to the button, go to interaction, all right? So here, if it is correct, we want to set user interaction, all right? We want to basically disable it. And this is telling us whether can this element be interactive or not. And we want to choose the handlebar, all right? This handlebar, we want to disable it, all right? That's number one. The second thing is we want to set the text, all right? Of what? Of the button text. So this button text that we see over here, we want to change that to say next question, all right? And we want it to happen very instantly. So let's check it out. Okay. So I'm going to drag this to 60. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and click on check, release, and now it works. So now I can no longer drag this and it's correct. And now it says next question. Perfect. Now, what we will do now is before we set up the logic for something is false, we're going to, I want to introduce to you a concept called as events. Now, the way events works is basically there is instructions that are defined in an event, and there is going to be a trigger that signals to the event to direct it to perform those actions. So we need to do two things. The first thing is to set the event. Basically defining when this event is triggered, what is supposed to happen. Now in this case, what I want to do is I want to set an event saying that there is going to be one event which is going to do these three things. There is going to be another event that is going to do a different set of things. All right. So this event is going to set the property, set the user interaction, and also set the text. So how do we do this? Where do we set up that event? Now, essentially, you can set up that event honestly anywhere, all right? So I typically like to set up events on the main screen itself. So select the main screen and add the event over here, all right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and say event, okay? And we want to first create the event. What is the event called, okay? So let's say we go here and choose custom events. And here I'm going to say correct answer is correct, okay? And I'm going to create a new one where we're going to say answer is incorrect, or let's say answer is wrong, okay? So now I'm going to go ahead and choose custom. Now we have a bunch of other types of events. Let's ignore all of that. Let's just choose custom, and choosing custom allows me to pick the event. If I choose any of the others like device, I can't select it. If I choose variable, I can only select variables. I want to choose, custom. And then I can say when the answer is correct. When the answer is correct, what should happen? So what we will do is I'll go back over here to this button. All right. And I'm going to copy these items. Okay. I'm going to copy all of that. Okay. And I'm going to come back here to the main and paste that over here. So now we have set up an event saying that when the event is correct, and maybe here I can say correct answer. Okay. So when the answer is correct, I want you to trigger this event called as answer is correct and do all of this. So now we have defined what should happen if the event is triggered. Now we need to basically say that when I tap on this button, trigger this event. So let's go back here to our button. And here I'm going to delete all of this. Here, if the condition is true, then we want to signal that event. So I'm going to go ahead and search for set event. And then I can choose this. So here at this point, I'm going to set the event or basically trigger the event saying that, hey, the answer is correct, execute all the actions. Then this is going to search for the event called event is correct. Okay, and now what is this event supposed to do? All the things that we mentioned here in the main screen over here, which is the event. Then it's going to come from there, signal to this, and then run all of these actions. So we can quickly check that and see if it works. So let's say I go all the way to 60 again, and I press check, and as you can see, it works like a charm. Now, we need to define what should happen if it does not work. So come over here and click on this button over here, okay? And I'm going to click on this, copy this, and paste it over here in the else section, okay? And we want to choose event is wrong. So now we have defined if the answer is correct, do this. If the answer is incorrect, then set the answer is wrong event. And now we need to go define what is supposed to happen when this event is triggered. So let's go over here and let's go back to the design tab. Now we need to have this, all right? So I'm going to copy this, come down over here, paste, bring this to the bottom. Again, we want to set a Z depth of 50. Why is the text not showing for some reason? Let's delete that again. Duplicate. Okay, cut, paste. Okay, perfect. Now bring it down, set the Z depth to 50 and oh, okay. Let's actually set that to 10 itself. And then we want to move this by 190 pixels. Same thing. Okay. So let's come back here to the main, go back to our interactions. I'm going to go and add a new event, custom event, and I'll probably close all of this. And here I'm going to choose the answer is wrong. Now, if the answer is wrong, we want to bring up the bottom sheet. So I'm going to say set property of the bottom sheet wrong, which is this one. Set the X offset, or actually the Y offset, set that to 0, and we want to animate it. So 0.25 and easing spring, and set this to 0.2. Okay, perfect. So now this is going to, it's basically the same thing as this, 0.25 spring, 0.2. This is the correct one. This is the wrong one. Now, we also want to set the user interaction of basically that to be disabled, right? Of basically the handle. So I'm going to copy that. So I'm going to copy this and paste that over here. Okay. The next thing is we want to set the text of that, copy that, paste that over here. And here we want to say try again. Okay. So now let's see if this works. Let's bring up our screen. Okay. So now if I choose the wrong answer, all right, let's say 37, I'm going to click on this, and now this works perfectly. All right. Now I can drag this around. Okay, looks like I forgot to set the target over here. So I will set that. And as you can see here, the copy changed to try again. Now here we need to create a new state where this button is red in color, right? So we're going to create that state, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set the target of this to be, oh, the target changed here as well, which is weird. So this is going to be handlebar, and this is going to be handlebar as well. All right. And this is going to be disabled, and we're going to disable this one as well. Ah, it's weird. Okay. They duplicated it here for some reason. So I'm going to delete this one. Here it is fine. Okay. So now let's go to the button, and we're going to create multiple states. So I'm going to go and create a new state. So I'm going to the design tab, click here, create a new state, and I'm going to call this error state. Okay. Now we can't change the text over here because it's one element. If you change the text here, it changes everywhere else. So we can't really do that. So we're anyway changing the text in the event. So here we can keep it whatever we want. And I'm going to quickly come here and just change the colors. I'm going to copy the hex codes and paste it over here and select the one at the bottom surface error, paste that. Okay. Now we need another one. So this is going to be our custom state again. This is going to be our error pressed because we need this animation. So I'm going to click on this, copy that, paste that over here. And then I'm going to click on this, the bottom surface, copy that, and I'm going to paste that over here. Oh. Let's try this again. Bottom surface and paste. Okay. And now I can just take this top one and I'm going to bring that down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, Move this also by 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now here, things can get a little complicated. So let me explain. So if I click on the interaction, you can see here that this button is only going to switch between pressed and default. I can't separately add conditions to this. So if I select this element, for example, the error, let's actually go back, cancel. If I choose the error one over here, this has the same things because in Play, when we set up an interaction for a component, it applies to all the variants. So now what we basically need to do is find a way to update the state depending on whether the answer is correct or not. So what I'll do now is I'm going to go ahead and disable these. So I can press D on the keyboard to just disable this. And now we've basically removed all the interactions for the button. And we will set all of this up in the main screen where we have the instance. We will set that up over here. And I'm going to start from scratch again. So I'm going to hide this for now. The first thing that we want to do is when I touch down, we want to be able to change it to the pressed state. All right. Now we need to set a condition here saying that if it is in this green state, which is essentially the default state, then move it to the pressed state. Because if I go ahead and let's say I choose set state, maybe it's a better way to explain. We have 4 options. We have the default state and the pressed state, and then we have the error state and the error pressed. So essentially I'm going to say, if this button is in the default state, then when I touch down, move it to the pressed state. If it is in the error state, then move it to the error pressed state, right? So how do we do that? I'm going to go ahead and set this by adding a condition here. And I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm just going to add that over here and we're going to add the condition. So we're going to move it to the pressed state if this condition is met. Now, what is the condition? Essentially, what we need to do is we need to tell Play to check the state of this button. How do we do it? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in self, which is the element, dot current state. If the current state of this button is equal to the default state. Now, how do we set the default state? We have to we have to select the element and then we have to choose the state. So we choose this thing called as list of states and then we say dot, and now we get all the various states. And I'm going to go ahead and choose the default state. So if the button, when I press down, is in the default state, then set it to the press state. Now, if it is not in the default state, it would essentially be in the error state. All right. So if it is in the error state, then set state of the button to be the error pressed state. All right. So now the touch down works. Now we need to do the touch up. What I can actually do here is let me just organize this on top. So touch up, down is going to be first, and then touch up, we have this. Now here we have to do quite a few things. So the first thing that we will do is understand the sequence of events. So let's say this is how the button is. Now when I press down, it's going to go to the pressed state. Okay. And now when I release my finger, it is in the pressed state, right? So what we will do is we will add a condition here, okay, saying that if the button dot current state, if the current state of the button is, we choose the list of states, okay, if the state of the button is in the pressed state, which is the green pressed state, okay, that essentially means here the button was initially green and active, all right. If it was in the pressed state, that means we need to check the answer now, then run this condition, okay. So if it is in the pressed state, run this condition where it is going to check whether the answer is right or wrong, and then it is going to set the right event. Now, what is the opposite of that? The opposite of pressed could essentially be any of the other 3 states, but there would be a possibility that our button could have been red. And if it was red in color, then what we want to do is reset the animation. Because what's going to happen here is if I run this from the default state, I'm going to go to the pressed state. And then when I touch up, when I release my finger, the button is in the pressed state. So then the press state is going to run this And if this passes, then it is going to check the condition and then it is going to show me whether the answer is right or wrong. Now let's say the answer is wrong. Then this button would become red. Now for me to try again, I have to be able to tap on the button to try again. So I'm going to tap on the button which is red in color, which is the error state. So at that point, when this button is red and I touch down, it's going to check whether it's in the default state or the error state. So when I've selected the answer, I'm going to try again. The button is not in the default state. It's in a different state. When I touch down, it's going to go to the error press state, which is correct, right? When it's the red button or the error button, it needs to be pressed. Now, when I release my finger, it was previously error pressed. So here, it's not going to go in the if statement. It's going to go in the else statement, which essentially means that this is the error pressed state. So when it's in the error press state, what I want to do is I want to reset the animation so that this bottom sheet goes down and this becomes an active button again and the CTA changes to check. So what that means here is I'm going to go ahead and set an event here and I want to create an event, okay? And I'm going to call this reset animation, okay? And I can choose reset animation. Now we need to define what reset animation is actually going to do, okay? So I'm going to come over here to the main screen and I'm going to create a new event, okay? Custom event, and change this to be reset animation. Now, what should happen to reset the animation? To reset the animation, the first thing is I want to be able to interact with this again, because if you see here, we had turned off the user interaction. We want to turn it on. So I'm going to say set user interaction off the handlebar, set that to enable. That's the first thing that we want to do. Second thing is we want to move down the banner. So I'm going to say property of what? The banner. So if I choose the wrong banner, bottom sheet wrong, set the Y offset actually to 190 because that was the initial position. And here we can animate it the same way. So here in this case, we can just do a default and we can do 0.25, okay? The third thing is I want to set the state from the error state to the default state. So the button, I'm going to set state of what? Of the button. So I can choose the button to be the default state. I want it to animate quickly. And also I want to change the text over here. Okay. So if I say set state or text actually, so text of the button text, which is called label, I want to change that to be check again because that's what it was before. Okay. Now let's see if this actually works. All right. So now let me move this. So let's say I choose 28. I'm going to press down. This is working well. I release. Now the value is wrong. Now, essentially, this should have changed to the error state. Now let's see if that is actually happening. So I'm going to go back to the button over here. Let's select the button here. Okay, so let's see. So when I touch up, all right, the button was in the pressed state, correct? So if I bring back my phone, all right, let me replay this again. So at this point, I touch down. So let's see if I can get this right, right? So now it's in the default state. So when I touch down, it's going to go to the pressed state, all right? Now when I release, okay, it was in the pressed state, all right? And it checked the answer. The answer was incorrect. So when the answer was incorrect, it ran the event, answer is wrong. Now let's see what is there in this event where it says answer is wrong. So I can go back and here. So let me close this up here. Now in the answer is wrong, we are only changing the property of the banner. So the banner is coming up. We are disabling the user interactivity of the handlebar and we are updating the text to try again. What we also need to do here is change the state of that button to be the error state. So I'm going to go here and say set state of what? Of the button to be the error state, and I want to happen instantly. Now let's see if this works. So let's try again. It's the wrong answer. Press down and release. And now you can see it works perfectly. Okay. Now let's go back and see if our condition is going to work. So if I click on this button, all right. And now let me hide all of this unnecessary things, and I'm going to bring back my phone again. Okay. Now at this point, I'm going to touch down. Now here, it's not in the default state, it's in the error state. So now when I touch down, it's supposed to go to the error pressed state, which should happen. Okay. So I'm going to press down. You can see it goes to the error press state. And now when I release, you can see it reset the animation. Okay. And the reason is because when I released, it was not in the pressed state. It was in the error pressed state. So which is the else condition. And then that goes ahead and resets the animation. So that reset animation did everything. And now I will be able to interact with it again. I can now press down again, check all of this. And now as you can see, it's not interactive. All right. So I have to click on try again. And then I can go ahead and check all of this. Now, let's say I set it to the correct value, which is 60. Now, I'm going to press down. I'm going to release. And now it's going to say, correct, well done, you're super smart. Now, the problem here is that this button is in the press state. So essentially what we want to do is when the answer is correct, all right, we want to be able to bring this back to the default state so that we get to see that it's not pressed. Right? So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the main screen. In the correct answer, all right, I'm going to add a set state for the button. All right, I'm going to bring the button and I'm going to change it to the default state. So now everything should work as expected. So if I choose the wrong value, check, release, perfect. Click here again. I can do it a bunch of times and it works. Try again. Bunch of time and it works. Let's try one more time. It works. Now, if I bring it to 60, which is the correct answer, let's try 60. There we go. Now, if I click on check, you can see that I pressed it and now it's back over here. Now here I can press it as many times as I want, but this should essentially take us to the next question. But this is where the animation ends, right? And I can't drag this anymore, right? So now, the entire animation is finally complete. Now, this is where we were checking the condition to see if 20 into 3 is 60. But what if we want to set a range and we want to hide the number over here? Now, you can actually duplicate this file and do it, but I will set both the conditions here and we can turn on and off the condition depending on what we basically need. So let's go ahead and close all of this. So the correct answer is going to be the same. Here, answer is wrong. Reset animation, all of that is going to be the same. So this will never change. The only thing is the logic over here on the button is going to change. So this condition that we are actually checking if the answer is correct or not, this is the only thing that we need to change, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say touch and I'm going to call this question. I'm going to say question 1, okay? And then I'm going to duplicate this by pressing Command D, and I'm going to press D on the keyboard to disable this, okay? And this is going to be question 2. So it's the same set of conditions, just that the condition here is going to be different. Now, what we need to do here is set a range that is acceptable to us, right? So if the value is 60 and the user answer is somewhere between 55 or 65, so we give and take 5 places, then we want to consider the answer to be correct. So the way we want to do this is if the user answer, okay, is equal to, or let's say we do greater than, so let's say we do greater than or equal to correct answer minus 5, right? So let's say the answer was 56, okay? 56 is greater than 60 minus 5, right? 60 minus 5 is 55. 56 is greater than that. So this is one condition. We can add another one and we can say, and this thing, we copy the same thing, all right? And let's try that again. And it looks like we can't paste conditions. So let's try again. So just say round user answer is less than or equal to the correct answer plus 5 close parenthesis. So now we are checking two conditions. So if the user answer is greater than correct answer minus 5 and the user answer is less than the correct answer plus 5, then it's going to be answer is correct, or else it's going to be wrong. So let's check this out. Bring out my phone again. So here, now at this point, we're able to see the number, but we're going to hide the number in a second. What I can do here is, let's say I choose 58. Now the answer should be correct. Okay. Let me reset this again. I can just disable and enable to sort of reset the animation. If I chose, let's say 29, it should show me the wrong answer. If I do, let's say 87, it should be the wrong answer. If I choose, let's say 65, or let's do 64 actually. If I do 64, then it's the correct answer because we're giving a range of plus and minus 5. Now let's see how to hide that number. What is basically happening is when I begin the drag animation, so let's say we come here to the main content and we choose the handlebar, all right? At this point, when I begin the drag animation, we are basically setting the property to 100, all right? All we need to do is we need to disable this. So now if I disable, then bring out my phone. Now, as you can see, I don't see the value anywhere. And now I have to sort of guess where it is. So let's say I do somewhere over here. I don't really know what the value is, but I'm going to go to check and I guess I was on the right point. So then it worked, right? And if you want to see it, let me try again with the wrong value. So let's say I'm going to reset the animation quickly here. Let's say I chose somewhere over here. I think this is definitely not close to 60. And then here, yeah, this is definitely incorrect. All right. Now there's one last thing that I want to do is, as you can see here, if I click on the button over here, it checks the condition and runs the animation. But the thing is, I don't want it to do this when I actually haven't entered any value over here. So basically in the initial state, I want this button to be disabled. And then when we begin the animation, we sort of enable the button, right? So let's go ahead and set this up. It should be super simple. All we need is to create a state for the button. So I'm going to come here to the design tab, click on the button and then click here. And I'm going to create a disabled state. So I'm going to go and choose the disabled state. And here what we basically need is I'm going to take the top surface, bring that down by 4 pixels, this also by 4 pixels. And I'm just going to change the color over here to have the disabled state. So that's going to be this color. And for the text, I'm going to apply this color. So color of the text, there we go. Okay. So this is our disabled state. And one thing that I want to do here is in the disabled state, I want to turn off this user interaction that you see over here. So I shouldn't be able to tap on this button when I tap on it. I shouldn't be able to interact with this button. So if we come back to the main screen, we can come here and select this button and change it from the default state to the disabled state. So now the disabled state looks like this. And so we want to activate this button when I begin the dragging. So if we come to the interaction, we choose the handlebar. And here when the pan begins, I want to set state of the button to the default state, right? So the moment I begin, no animation, just started as soon as possible, right? And we want to select the target and set it to the button. So obviously we want to be able to set the button to the default state, right? So now let's check this out and see if it's working. All right, so we've got ourselves the phone here. It's in the disabled state. Now when I click on it, nothing is happening. But when I increase this or basically drag, you can see the button becomes active and I can click on this to reveal the answer. But it's not really working. And this, I think, is a bug. Essentially, what we need to do is we need to set the user interaction also to be active, because over here we turned it off. So if I click on this, on the user interaction here for the button, we actually turned it off. But for the other buttons, it is turned on. But for some reason, it still doesn't turn it on. So we can manually do that. It should be super simple. So I'm going to click on the button, or actually not the button, the handlebar. Go to our interactions. So not only do we want to set state of the button, but we also want to add user interaction, set that and set that to be enabled. And of course, of the button actually. So we're going to select the button, enable the button interaction. So now hopefully all of this should work. So now it's disabled. I can drag and then I can click and release and it works like a charm, right? And I can do this multiple times and it's going to work. Let's try somewhere over here and this should be the correct answer. All right. So That's how you set up all of this interaction, and I hope you really enjoyed the series. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, leave it in the comment sections down below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing, awesome content. See you guys in my next video. So then take care and bye-bye.